In this video, I'm going to tell you all the things that level up my painting across the years. Wow, okay, that brings back so many memories. Some of them you'll be able to apply right away, some of them will be more specific to my own personal painting journey, some are forever lost in time. But all of them will hopefully give you new impulses to make your painting journey more fun, diverse and enjoyable. Number 1, magnifying glasses. Miniatures are tiny and often you feel like you're stabbing in the dark with your brushes and hope for the best. Well, the whole game changes when you suddenly can see everything 3.5 times bigger. That's cheating. I got my magnifying glasses from a local electronics store 13 years ago and it has the best $10 investment I ever made for the hobby. It helped me detail my miniatures more and refine these golden demon entries, but even if you don't plan on competing, magnifying glasses help to reduce the strain on the eye and make painting more enjoyable. Before I got mine, I could only paint a couple of hours per day. With them, my eyes don't feel tired even after 10-hour painting sessions. So mine are really old and the ones I could find today all have fancy stuff like headbands and LED lights, which you don't really need. But just like with brushes, you have to find the one that suits you. I'm going to put links to all of the tools and books I'm going to mention in this video in the description if you want to check them out. Number 2, Raphael brushes. Often you hear it's not the tools that make an artist, but when your freshly bought brushes splay and split after using them for 12 minutes, you know you just dumped a big amount of money that you could have spent on more plastic crack right into the toilet. I've tried many brushes, and I'm not saying that cheap synthetic brush you bought when you realized you're basically painting with squirrel hair doesn't have a purpose in painting. I use many cheap brushes for simpler and dirtier tasks, but once you experience the glory of a brush that just does what it's supposed to do and that you don't have to mangle into shape every 3 seconds, you will never go back. For me, Raphael 8404 brushes were a revelation because they combined sharp tips with a large reservoir and longevity. I'm not saying you have to use these brushes if you don't like them, but finding a tool that works for me and that did exactly what I wanted it to do was important. Try finding the brushes that work for you and don't settle for less. Let me know which brushes you are using in the comment section. I'm always curious what the community prefers. Number 3, matte paint. This doesn't mean that matte paint is always superior to satin finishes, but there's one thing that matte paint helped me with. Often when you paint with satin and glossy finishes, you get something that we call artificial highlights. Okay, that's not an official term, but it's basically what it is. Highlights that you didn't paint but that still show up on a miniature. It's when you have these white reflection lines running across the surface and you can't properly see what you're painting until you rotate the reflection away from hitting your eye directly. Not only is that annoying while painting, but it also distracts people that look at your finished miniatures, and in competitions it's easier to show off your skills using matte paint. Super glossy surfaces and artificial highlights can easily betray the small scale, just like a lack of contrast does. To me, that was a big thing to realize, and today I'm using matte and satin paints, but more consciously in different situations. Number 4, mixing paint. There's a certain convenience factor in buying paints that you want to use and have them pre-mixed, and I'm certainly guilty of that myself. Knowing exactly what you get out of a pot is nice and helps with repeating certain steps and obviously when copying recipes. But you also end up buying a bazillion paint pots. You don't need this many red colors to paint a great looking red, for example. New painters often have this concept of you can only highlight the blue with a lighter blue and are baffled when they see me highlight with different hues. I guess we know who's to blame for that. But while it's convenient to use pre-mixed colors, it also limits you a lot in a way. Mixing your own paints not only makes you more independent from having to buy each and every color pot out there, and if you are missing a color, you can just create it yourself, or at least a very similar tone from what you have available. It also gives you a good understanding of what subcolors your ready mixed paints consist of, and you will realize why certain colors harmonize better with others. And don't forget that a lot of these pre-mixed colors have large portions of black and white in them, which messes with vibrancy a lot and other factors too. You will also realize that you can perfectly well use other hues to highlight blues or reds or whatever color, and it will make your miniatures more unique and interesting. Why would you want to paint just the same Ultramarine army that 3 million other Space Marine players already have? Number 5. The Rackhams Havoc magazines. Back in the early 2000s, the French company Rackhams started to influence the miniature market with their game Confrontation. They produced the highest quality metal miniatures at the time, and they hired great talent to make the most out of them in their box arts and presentations. They were the first to use non-metallic metal exclusively and made it popular on a larger scale. Eventually, people were asking them for tutorials, and when their Havoc magazines came out, they spilled some of their beans with every issue. Their painting concepts were so vastly different from Games Workshop, and it was a style to aspire to, on top of the miniatures being really unique and different. From the iconic bases to building interesting and detailed terrain, beautiful paint jobs and step-by-steps, as well as intriguing artworks by great names such as Paul Bonner and their in-house talent, everything in these pages was a great inspiration at the time. Sadly, their pre-painted shenanigans and financial miscalculations caused the demise of Rackham, and along with them, this very inspirational source material. Number 6. Color and Light by James Gurney. In this book, Gurney teaches us the ways to create an illusion of reality. Now, I always consider the best painted miniatures those that try to aim for credibility, which means they need to have a certain portion of reality in it in order for our brains to find them credible. So in turn, understanding how color and light shape our reality helps tremendously with creating really well painted miniatures. The book walks us through different general concepts of art, such as limited palettes, color relationships, as well as how our eyes perceive color and light, the physics of why some effects look the way they do, as well as concrete examples of what to do to represent certain situations. And most of this is directly applicable to the miniature painting world. It's a tome of knowledge, and you would struggle for years to paint the miniature using every aspect laid out in the book. But it's worth it to just implement the tiniest amounts of this knowledge into your miniatures. Number 7. Color theory. This ties in directly with the previous point. Color relationships impact whether we like or hate or are simply indifferent towards the miniature we are looking at. Now, I don't consider this to be the most important thing in miniature painting. Miniatures painted without color theory in mind can still look great, but being aware that colors influence each other in our perception is something we might as well keep in mind. And knowing when a certain color combination increases contrast, makes a viewer uneasy, or makes your miniatures pleasing to look at can be a powerful tool when trying to increase storytelling and creating moods with our miniatures. And since a lot of this is based on psychology, it applies to army painting just as urgently as if you were composing a diorama. Learning about this opened up a whole new level of miniature painting to me, and including a minimum of color theory will also help you to produce better miniatures and armies. Number 8. Studying references. This refers to two possible references. First of all, to the illustration and reality. A long-term mantra of mine has been create what looks normal. And this also is tying in with the previous points. If you don't want to learn all these concepts but still want to be better at painting, learn from observing reality. This is a random screenshot I took a while ago to explain how studying references can tell you how to paint something. For example, red in this case. How many people struggle with how to paint red? How many times have you heard people asking if it's better to use white, beige, or orange to highlight red? Well, if you look at this shirt, the answer is most likely neither. Another thing is to study how 2D artists work. If you don't know how to paint a face, simply look at artworks by experienced painters and study what they do. We are doing something very similar to illustration, just in a 3D medium. So why not learn from the giant pool of knowledge that comes from 2D painting? Number 9. Teaching others. You could teach a friend how to paint, create a journal or blog that recapitulates what you learned, or just tell your dog if you don't have any friends like me. Hello, darkness, my old friend. For me, doing YouTube videos and structuring workshops has helped to shape my framework of how and why I do the things I do when painting or sculpting. It helped me structure my own thoughts and analyze my processes, and through that I might encounter flaws in my thinking or ways to improve my own painting. Teaching others consolidates what you know and makes you aware of what you're still missing. Number 10. Talking to people whose style is completely different. In general, getting a different opinion on anything you do is always a good idea. What helped me the most, especially in moments when I was stuck in my own head, was to talk to others and see what their solutions and approaches are. That's why I still take workshops from other painters, and I've always walked away with a new perspective on technique, composition, use of colors, tools, or simply personal growth. One particular workshop has brought me back to painting in 2013 after a long break and has truly re-sparked my love for the hobby just by shifting my perspective on what it means to be happy while painting, and that would not have happened if I stayed in my own head forever and didn't open up to new approaches. Has any of the points I have been mentioning been helpful to you? If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more helpful painting videos. And if you are already subscribed, hit that bell button because unfortunately I can't upload on a schedule, but I still upload regularly. That way you won't miss any videos, like my upcoming masterclass series on this ogre Myrmidon, for example. And if you want to do me a favor, watch one of my other videos like the one suggested on screen right now. Thanks for watching.